Hop over to the lines. We've been talking a lot about what's going on with the IHSA, the start of basketball season, where the governor stands, where the IHSA stands. So we thought, maybe we should go right to the top and get an answer from someone who knows these things. And that would be the guy who's the head of the IHSA. That's our friend Craig Anderson. Craig, good morning to you, and thanks for taking time out of your day for us.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
How's everything going other than your phone ringing nonstop and everybody wanting a piece of you?
Yeah, it's been a little crazy in the last 24 hours for sure, but, a lot of good news for our young people, and so it's exciting to be able to talk about it.
So Craig, kind of walk us through the last 36 hours or something like that. Where were you? Did you get any heads up on Governor Pritzker's announcement 2 days ago that he was elevating basketball to high risk? And how'd you feel when you heard that news?
Yeah, we didn't know up until about half an hour, 15 minutes before he was scheduled to go on a press conference. That we did get invited into an online meeting just to get that update prior to it being announced. But up until that point, we really had no idea that was going to happen, and really were kind of caught off guard that we had been through the fall with a fall contact days being conducted by our member schools and our kids interacting in scrimmage activity, and then to all of a sudden, move it to a higher risk was a bit surprising to us.
Yeah, because all along it had been, was it low or medium? What category did that fall into previously?
Yeah, basketball was at a medium risk where they couldn't compete, but they could engage in scrimmage.
And you guys in the IHSA have kept your eyes open on what everybody's doing around us as well. You've looked to bordering states who are doing things, who are opening up and playing, and looking at their numbers basically as the basis to where you were going to go forward from, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Throughout the fall, we were, I've been in contact with executive directors in the Midwest, and we were monitoring and kind of sharing with IDPH and the governor's office how that was going. And really kind of felt like we were laying the groundwork for how we could similarly, move forward with our sports and activities.
When this news broke, I think a lot of people just had a problem with just changing the risk level of basketball. I think my biggest complaint was if it was medium risk, 2 months ago, why is it medium high risk now? What has changed in the game of basketball? I know maybe outside circumstances have changed, but were you given a reason as to why? Were there numbers backing the claim that it is now a high risk sport?
No, they really didn't produce any numbers. They just kind of went into the context of the sport. But I was kind of like you. Nothing had changed in regards to the rules of the game, the amount of contact, and so when the decision makers made that decision in July to deem it a medium risk sport, the level of play that an interaction between player, proximity of players, and interaction. Of course, didn't change. The game hasn't changed. So, to me, if that was the thought, then in July when they initiated it, that would have been the time to identify it as high risk if that's where it belonged.
If you're just joining us, we're spending some time with IHSA Executive Director Craig Anderson, who's kind enough to take some time out of his day for us as we discuss what's going on as far as basketball, and the governor's take on it and your take on it. One of the things that I'd heard you, or actually I didn't hear you say it, I read a quote from you over the last day or so, is one of the things that you looked at as far as this goes is the mental health of student athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been hearing, of course, from a number of parents throughout the fall, likewise with administrators and coaches, and, got a son of my own as a three-sport athlete, junior in high school, and, we were looking to have students have a third consecutive season without a major sport. All was lost in the spring and the fall. We lost our team sports. And then now we were looking at basketball being lost potentially from a winter season. And, that takes its toll on young people who need these opportunities to engage, to interact, and have a release. And, again, a lot of kudos go to our Sports Medicine Advisory Committee, who has put together what we believe to be some safe protocols for us to conduct basketball similar to what we see is going to happen in other states. And so, I think collectively our board, again, hearing and seeing the same kind of information, felt like it was time to do something on behalf of our students.
Steering away from basketball for just a second, like we said, basketball was all of a sudden deemed from moderate risk or medium risk to high risk. We should also bring up that there were some other sports that went the other way. Cheerleading, dance, they were moved from high risk to low risk. The argument is still there for me. What has changed with cheerleading and dance that all of a sudden makes that a low risk sport instead of a high risk sport?
Yeah, a lot of that is related to the mitigation that we implemented or suggested that we would institute to make them that lower risk. And that would involve, the competitive cheer, and they're going to look much different than they typically do per our guidelines because, they'll have to maintain 6 feet of social distance on the floor while there will be movement along the floor. That's a guideline we're requiring. And then, no partner stunts, no pyramids. So the physical interaction of students within the guidelines that we presented to IDPH caused them to recognize that with those mitigations, that it could be a lower risk at that point. And so that was the reason they put it to that risk level, was a result of us saying, here's how we can conduct it with all those mitigations in place.
So unlike basketball, the fundamentals in the mechanics of those two sports actually changed to make them actually lower.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we modified a lot of what, again, you would typically see in a cheerleading performance, competitive performance, similar to dance, where there's a lot of interaction, physical touching of athletes, as they go to form pyramids or lifts and those kind of things. So that will be, they'll look much different in the format to make it a low-risk sport.
Greg, got to ask, the governor sent out I guess you call it a warning message to the IHSA and member schools, quoting here, we've told school districts what the rules are. I think they all know. They would probably be taking on legal liability if they went ahead and moved beyond what the state has set as the mitigation standard. What's your take going forward on the potential of lawsuits?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance since that came out yesterday afternoon to talk to our legal counsel. We recognize that this our schools to do this. So, now we need to work closely with our schools and figure out, how we can do this. And there's going to be a number of hurdles that we have to go over. I don't know if they'll be legal. Schools are going to have to make some judgments on their own if they want to conduct sports kind of against the governor's and IDPH's guidance. So a lot of unanswered questions in that regard. And so we'll work closely with our schools to again, see what, to try to keep them out of legal trouble, but that is yet to be seen.
Who did you hear loudest from when this news broke from Pritzker? From coaches, from parents, from athletes, from administrators? Who was the first to knock on your door?
Well, my email box kind of filled up with parents, a number of which had been monitoring, throughout the fall, and I had received communications from. But, the parents that were hoping, because we had kind of indicated, publicly that we had shared our guidelines for how we thought we could conduct basketball safely at the time when it was medium risk. And so that was, the cry of, here we go again kind of response to, trying to prevent opportunities for our kids. And so that was initially what we saw the most, or I did, had my inbox kind of start filling up with those kind of responses.
Yeah, I can see where, because when that news broke, it was like a floodgate opening up, and there were opinions. Social media was just obviously going crazy with it, and I would assume, all of that would then trickle down to your email box getting all filled up. One of the things I want to ask you about is with the play of basketball, part of the deal is while playing, you have to wear a mask, correct?
That is correct. That's part of our guidelines.
And I don't know the ins and outs of this one, but How does that work as far as, I haven't done anything physically strenuous while wearing a mask. Restrict airflow? Do we have any thoughts on how that's going to work? That just seems to be an encumbrance of some sort.
Yeah, it's something that we're going to monitor closely. Honestly, our Sports Medicine Advisory Committee added those guidelines really because they thought if we were going to get approval from IDPH and the governor's office to play basketball, it was likely going to be with that requirement. Because currently, when you're inside a school, everyone has to be masked all the time. So part of the guidelines with masking also includes the addition of a kind of a media timeout every quarter, where there'll be a break in action that will permit students, officials to social distance at that point, remove their masks to catch their breath and then resume activities. So, yeah, we're going to have to monitor that. Best case scenario, we wouldn't have to do that, but I think initially in trying to do this safely, it's a part of it that we're just going to have to work through to get kids back on the floor and get them that opportunity to play.
Another mitigation mandate that may be put in here, and I forget if this has been officially said by you or the IHSA, or this has been whispered about, but a cap for attendance at the games. No spectators. I've heard 50 people max in the gym. Is that in the plans as well? Yeah,
the current guidelines kind of to match what the schools are limited to by the State Board of Education, which was no more than 50 in a space. And so, yeah, when you put the players, coaches, trainers, officials, and bench help, you quickly get a number very close to 50. So initially, unless our board makes additional modifications to that, right now the guidelines would have the limit of 50, which would include all of those groups. Again, so likely going to limit spectators as we get off the ground with our early competitions.
And have you also addressed what's going to happen at the JV levels and freshman levels of basketball? Will they be competing at the same time, same gyms? What kind of provisions have been made for them?
Yeah, that's going to depend on local schools and their scheduling. That limit of 50 in the gym is probably going to prevent both multiple levels of teams being in the gym at the same time. So, they'll have to get teams in and out before, one team out before another team comes in to resume play or start a new contest. So, yeah, our schools will have to work that out and be cautious about the gathering limits, because we want to uphold those guidelines, again, for safety. We want to get this done successfully and safely. So if we identify and have a model of how we can do it, then we think that'll bode well for us wanting to complete our new spring and summer seasons for the rest of the school year.
Craig, a differing opinion is often met by a governmental body with the statement, well, we're following the science, we're listening to the experts here. Well, in reading all about what the methodology that you guys have gone through and how you've arrived at your decisions, you're following the science and the experts as well.
Yeah, we are. We've leaned on our Sports Medicine Advisory Committee that are physicians, athletic trainers, some excellent, and served us for well over 20 years, a few of them, the doctors on our committee. So we respect their decisions, and not that we don't respect IDPH and the governor's office, but again, I think we believe, and our board believes, that we've instituted safety guidelines much like we see happening around us, that will allow us to go forward and do it safely.
Obviously, you've given schools the okay to go ahead and do this, but it is still up to a school-by-school basis. Have you heard back from schools? Is the majority opting in? Have you heard some opting out? What's the early feedback on that?
Yeah, it's still real early on that. I've gotten some responses from athletic directors in particular that they've been positive, while some in their communication say, we still don't know locally, because those will be boards of education and superintendents kind of working on that decision making. And so we'll open up an entry kind of later into November as schools now start to make these decisions to see where the number of schools that want to participate. But I think we're going to have a fair number because I think schools recognize that this is good for kids. And if they're able to get back to some in-person learning, and I know that those that aren't will struggle with making the decision to play basketball. So we'll see all kinds of different possibilities of schools choosing to or not to participate and play basketball this year. But again, we think it's a great opportunity where schools can and want to make a decision to allow this to go forward with it.
He's IHSA Executive Director Craig Anderson. Craig, as always, you've been very, very kind to us and carving time out of your day for us. We appreciate this. We know how busy a time it is, and we think you're doing a really fine job, and we're glad to see you're doing what you're doing.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Have a great rest of your day.